This program has been made possible by a grant from the UCF Office of Research and Commercialization. The UCF Office of Research and Commercialization is committed to moving the discoveries of our faculty and students from ideas to innovation to realization. By moving research from the laboratory to the private sector, we are helping to diversify Florida's economy and helping to bring high-paying jobs to our state. This program presents some examples of our research and our efforts to transition this research to the private sector.
Hello once again and welcome to Zenith. I'm your host, Ed Hyland, and today our look at the world of research takes us to the Business Incubator at UCF. As the name implies, an incubator is a place to nurture and grow. Since its founding in 1999, the UCF Business Incubation Program has helped more than 130 emerging companies, including 70 current clients, to create over $500 million in annual revenue and more than 1,000 new jobs with an average salary of $59,000. One of those companies is MyDia. It works like this. Imagine you have something you'd like to build, but all you have are concepts or sketches. MyDia has the technology to create a three-dimensional version of your idea that you can hold, improve, and potentially sell.
Essentially, a person can walk in with a napkin sketch or walk in with a patent or even an idea. We've had people walk in with nothing in hand, and we have the ability to take that idea, essentially extract it out of their head and turn it into a physical part like you see right here. So this is a local designer engineer that creates, he's actually our very first customer at MyDia Technologies over 5 years ago, where he creates remote control car parts and pieces. And so this guy, he actually designs his own models and sends it to us, and that way we're kind of like a 3D Kinko's. We take a model and we print it out, but we have people that walk in off the street and they have a patent or concept. We model it and create it in 3D modeling software called SolidWorks, and we have some other tools as well. We have people that come with physical parts. We have the ability to laser scan and bring the geometry into the computer, manipulate it, and then create one or multiple copies. So in some cases it's kind of like a Star Trek replicator. But this technology allows us to very quickly go from an idea to a physical part in hand and then help accelerate the product development cycle. All these technologies work in a similar fashion when we're in the space of direct digital manufacturing, and the real idea behind it is that they're growing the parts layer by layer. So the opposite of machining where you cut material away or molding where you melt material and you form it, this technology is based on the premise to where you take a digital file and you cut it into slices, and then you grow the part layer by layer. So it's actually depositing it, kind of like a bee grows a beehive. It just adds material where it needs it. So when this part's built at the end, you clean it off and it's ready to go regardless of its complexity. And this could be a video gaming character, it can be an architectural model. We can take CT scan data and recreate custom patient data for surgical planning and other purposes. But all of these technologies, there's buzzwords like fused deposition modeling and selective laser sintering and stereolithography and a lot of other different technologies out there. Essentially, you push a button and the part comes off the machine and it's done. This is a connector. So if you look down inside of here, there's a couple holes which are probably a little bit hard to see, but there's 4 holes that mount this to an electronics board, and then wires pass through these. In the past, this technology was used to mainly make concept models to allow engineers to produce a part, fit check it, make sure it looks good, make sure that their new PAM bottle is going to look good when it sits on the shelf, has the right shape to it. But the real benefit of this technology is really changing how parts are manufactured in the future, because the materials have matured and the processes have matured. We have the ability now to produce a part that can go in the end-use application. And, you know, next door right now on our machines we have 100 sets of cases that are being built that will get assembled with electronics, that then will go to firemen to use in the field. So it's final end-use parts. We produce parts. We've actually designed and produced a part in about 35 minutes that ended up going on a BMW. And to date, we produced 7,000 of them. Now, to date, what we have is we have about 4 machines. We have an immense network now where people can not just come to us for the machines that we have in-house, but they can get metals and ceramics and plating, rapid injection molding, very high-end processes. So we have the ability to be a one-stop shop to access any direct digital manufacturing technology. We have about 7 employees, and our sales have grown on average about 25% from the beginning. And so we're getting there. We've progressed a long way. So.
Midea can turn concepts and designs into physical parts in under a week, and sometimes within the same day. Up next, a new head for the Business Incubation Program, what that means for the program, and what we can expect to see during these tough economic times.
For me as a flight engineer, my primary responsibility is to maintain the U.S. Systems as well as the payloads that are on the U.S. side. And that also includes the Japanese experiment module and the Columbus experiment module. And I think one of the really cool things about Expedition 20 and 21 is that we'll be a 6-person crew on board station at that time.
The mission of the Office of Technology Transfer at the University of Central Florida is to proactively facilitate the transfer of technology from the university to the commercial sector through enlightened technology transfer policies, processes that efficiently and effectively reduce off-the-shelf technology inventory, and dedication to customers and being easy to do business with. Our guiding principles are development of intellectual property assets, licensing them into the commercial sector, which leads to a return on investment for the university. We envision an eventual contribution to the economic development within the Central Florida region, the state, and the nation. UCF will be recognized as a contributor and leader in the future economic performance of the Central Florida region. Gordon, thank you for joining us here on Zenith. You're no stranger to the Business Incubation Program. First of all, just kind of tell us a little bit about the incubation program, and really, you know, it stretches all across Central Florida, doesn't it?
Yes, it does. Yeah, we have 7 locations now, and 70-some companies scattered around among those locations. The largest location being right here in Central, in the park, and so we have a wide variety of companies. Many of them are using technology that was created at the University of Central Florida, and they've licensed it and started a company. So we have a good mix of folks there, which is beneficial to the community and to the university. And we partner with a lot of people around town, which gives the support and the help that these companies need. What we're trying to do is give them a chance to avoid some of what we call critical errors that can happen early in the process when you have a new company. And entrepreneurs, quite often, they're brilliant in their field, their specialty, which may be a scientific or engineering field, but when it gets outside of that into the business world, they have some problems, and we can help them avoid making mistakes as a result of those problems. So.
Yeah, laser expert may not have a business degree or something like that just to keep the books right. Now this is a tough that's an understatement. It's a tough economic environment. And you mentioned there's about 70 companies or so that are currently between here and Research Park and also the other campuses as well. But what about the growth? I mean, can it still grow right now in this particular environment? Is it just really tough for everyone?
It's tough, but I'll tell you that the companies that come into the incubation program, these are entrepreneurs, and they love the lifestyle of being an entrepreneur, and they know that they have to be scrappy, is the term I use to describe them during tough economic times. So that's what we have now. Is it's difficult to raise money if you're looking for outside investors. So they have a difficult time, but you know what? They get pretty innovative, pretty scrappy, as I said, and they learn how to survive, and boy, does that serve them well later on. As you know, there are a lot of studies that have been done about companies that were created during recessions and depressions in past years, and many of the best companies out there right now were started during that time. And I maintain that's because they learned to get by on limited funds and be creative during that period of time.
Leaner and meaner from the very beginning.
Exactly. Yeah.
Now, a lot of the things that we talk about when we here on Zenith revolve around technology transfer, and of course, one of the big aspects is trying to bring technology from the university laboratory, so to speak, to the market via the incubator. But it also involves, I guess, people coming in from outside. So, can you give us some of that synergy that's taking place here?
Yeah, we have many of our incubator sites are funded by city and county governments, in addition to the High Tech Corridor Council and some other funding sources. And the university, of course, invests in it too. But so we take this out to any entrepreneur in our region that has a company and a good idea, and there's a fairly rigid process for them to get into the incubator. So it's not like you can come in and sign in and go in. They have to go through a class, a very helpful class that very interactive. That's taught by specialists from around town that know what they're talking about. And that whole process, once you get companies into that, we can apply that process both to technology companies and to companies that are not technology based. Now, you understand that every company uses computers now, so it's not like you have that they don't use technology, but they haven't created any technology. There's no intellectual property behind it, and we can help them just as well, especially when they need contacts at the university or contacts around town with the community leaders and that type of thing. We can reach out and partner again, pull those partners in, because that's why we're successful. You know, we spend $2.5 million a year as our budget roughly, and we have about 12 people. That's not a lot of people, so we have to rely on, you know, attorneys and accountants and marketing folks and other people that in organizations that we're affiliated with to support the entrepreneur during those very tenuous times.
Well, it must take a lot of creativity on your part as well, and the business incubator, because someone comes in and says, well, I have the latest and greatest widget. But it's never been out there before. You know, it's a brand new type of product. So you kind of have to create a marketing plan and a business plan and all of the other angles needed to make that thing not only grow here, but also to be sent out and perhaps developed elsewhere.
Yeah, very true. And we reach out to other folks like we're fortunate to have the Venture Lab, which is another UCF group that what we can do is send that entrepreneur that you just described over to them, and they'll help them do some market research to determine, is this idea you have really commercially viable? And sometimes they get told it isn't, you know, your baby's ugly, so we're not, well, I don't think we can do anything with it. So that's kind of what happens. Sometimes they dig into it and they get the market research together. They find out with some fine tuning and some innovation, they might be able to bring it out into the commercial world and make some money. We're all about creating jobs, jobs that pay well, you know, in Central Florida. That's what the incubation program is really about. It's an economic development effort, and it works.
Now, some of the dollars needed may come from the people themselves that are creating the widget. They may have some additional funding. There may be some grants. But there are other ways that funding can take place. And one of those is, as you were describing to me before, comes from angels, people that have some dollars. Perhaps they would like to invest in a new product. Tell us a little bit about the incubation showcase.
Yeah, we about 4 times a year we select 2 companies that are in the incubation program, and we coach them on their presentation and take them, and they go down to the Citrus Club, and I invite in people that I know that have invested in companies, and these are typically angel investors. In other words, a person that has substantial wealth, and they invest their own money in the company, and quite often they like to participate in the growth of the company in some way other than financially. You know, they like to be an advisor or so it can be valuable in that sense as well. We do those 4 times a year. They give about a 15-minute presentation. We allow 15 minutes for questions, and this serves it serves the entrepreneur very well also, because they get some questions asked that they're eventually going to have to answer, and if they haven't figured out how to answer those, it's high time that they did. So, but usually we've coached them to the point where they do a good job with it.
I was going to ask, do they have to sometimes come back? In other words, okay, I've got a good product, but I'm still working on my presentation. I'm still working on the business plan, and they're kind of sent back to the drawing board in that regard. Does that happen sometimes?
It happens, yes it does, especially with the business plan, because it's a changing, living document that kind of has to be changed as you go along, and that's the reason why I tell them, don't write a real long business plan, because you're going to have to keep it up to date. If it has an excessive amount of material in it, guess what? You're going to spend a lot of time keeping it up to date, because you don't want to hand it to a potential investor and things to be out of date in there and different than what you told them in your presentation. So, you know, we coach them on the presentation, and we even work closely with them on a thing called an elevator speech, which is just a very crisp, typically 1 minute presentation. The idea came from an elevator. You know, you're on there with somebody you've been trying to meet, and you have the elevators going up. You have a chance to talk, but it has to be very right to the point. So we work with them on that. That's difficult, especially for engineers and scientists, because they want to tell you about the technology, and you don't have time
break
to
it
do
down.
that.
And half the time you don't understand it. You know,
Right.
you may get the final concept, but
Exactly.
the actual how this
Yeah.
thing works is sometimes difficult to
Yeah.
understand. Well, that gets into the research aspect for me, because you know, UCF, one of the tenets for the university is research, and the incubator has been a great way to take research that has commercial applications and turn that into something that can go out there. But you were mentioning also about a third of the companies in the incubator are coming from the outside. Maybe they're not generated by the university. Is that working together? In other words, does it come back into the university as perhaps further research or ways that they can apply for research-oriented dollars?
Oh yeah, it works. Again, that partnering thing, we benefit from that because we can introduce them to people out in the community, and the company, whether it be from the university, from technology coming out of the university, and I may have switched the numbers earlier, but about a third are actually tied to the university. 2/3 are outside.
Okay.
But both benefit in the same manner. Actually, we have to work with the entrepreneur a little differently. If they happen to be a scientist or an engineer, we have a little bit different problem. If they've never started a company before, they have a lot of learning to do, you know, and introduction to the business world is a significant thing. But we have people that come in that they've started 2 or 3 companies already. When they first started to do that, we kind of were puzzled, said, wonder why this guy's here. He started 2 companies already. But you know, after a while we found out that maybe the person had started 2 companies up in Cleveland or New York or somewhere and just moved to Florida, so he needs contacts around town, and especially at the university. So we introduce them to people that can help them, and even though they know how to run a business and how to start a business, I should say, they don't know their way around Central Florida in terms of contacts and that type of thing. So we have a good.
Is there synergy also with other incubation programs? Because I mean, there are other universities and other places that have incubation programs, and certainly you want to develop the homegrown product, so to speak. But a lot of these things that are being developed are for national use. And do you try and work with other folks as well?
Yeah, we do. We belong to the National Business Incubator Association and participate in their annual conference, and we also have a significant input into that. We won the Incubator of the Year award in 2004, and so we have a program here that's looked up to. So that helps us. But yes, we do work with other incubators. We've had, it's limited, but we've had some real good success with working with others, especially some of them that are down in the southeast.
Well, on that note, Gordon Hogan, thank you so much for coming by and joining us today here on Zenith.
Thanks for inviting me.
And you stay right there. We have much more straight ahead right here on Zenith.
What we want to do is to better understand how the normal immune system functions, and that way we can then use that information to design new therapies to when the immune system doesn't work well, like in cancer, for example, where you have the immune system doesn't see the cancer cells and the cancer cells grow. And what does a normal look like? What is a normal mechanism like? And we really don't understand a whole lot about how we stay healthy. I mean, that's still an area that we are still trying to, put our finger on. So we've zeroed in on a cytokine. A cytokine is basically a product produced by cells of the immune system. And it's kind of the currency of the immune system. So one cell produces a cytokine, receives another cell, gets that cytokine from the first cell, and then it does something. And the cytokine that we focus in is a unique cytokine because it's actually not made by the cells of the immune system. It's made by accessory cells. And we still don't know, it's called IL-7, interleukin 7. We still don't know even where it's made in the body. But we do know that if you don't have any IL-7, you don't have an immune system.
We continue to seek out innovation and research and report it to you every month in a new program. Join us right here on UCF TV or on the web at www.ucf.tv. The goal of research is to better understand the world around us. Our goal is to be a window to that world. Until next time, I'm Ed Highland for Zenith.